And Tim's zooming in. So it being slightly after 7:15, we're going to bring this meeting to order. This is the April 26th meeting of the Chelmsford Planning Board. We will be holding this meeting live. We're having Zoom in addition as a convenience to those who are unable to attend in person. However, if the Zoom were to go down, we will continue the meeting in the live format. So we're going to start with our public input, and there's public input shall be limited to statements relating to issues which are under the jurisdiction of the planning board, but that are not currently the subject of a pending public hearing. Public comment on pending public hearings will be heard during those public hearings only, please. So don't know if there's anyone who wants to speak during the public input session.
Seeing none.
So I did just want to comment, if there being none, we'll move along to administrative review. But I did want to comment that Tim Shanahan is present on Zoom and has been since the beginning of the meeting. And that gives us everyone being present. Administrative review. We have site plans on 270 Billerica Road.
Yeah, so there's a letter in the file, but the letter's also up on the screen. So this is for endorsement of final plans. Procedurally, as you likely know, your decision includes endorsement of final plans. Those final plans are intended to capture all of the technical revisions, fire department, mostly engineering, and then we ask engineering to review and indicate that all of the technical revisions have been completed, and that's what you see in front of you this evening.
Very good.
So we would look for a motion to endorse, and then later this evening, you'll physically sign the Mylars.
So moved.
Who was that?
Do I have a second? That was Mike Raisbeck.
Second.
Mike Walsh, second. We're going to vote. We'll start with John.
Do I need to abstain on this since I was not here?
Oh, yes, you need
Yeah.
to abstain.
Aye.
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 Abstain.
Tim?
I'm an aye. Aye.
Thank you. Okay, and we'll sign those at the end. So now we have before us a new public hearing at 200 Turnpike Road for CJ Martel Crane and tree removal for the construction of a new 3,500 square foot contractor's garage and outdoor contractor's yard with associated site improvements. Site is located in the IA Limited Industrial Zoning District, consists of approximately 1.62 acres, as shown on Assessor's Map 106, Block 382, Lot 6. The applicant requests approval for a special permit per 195.5 Use Regulations E 5A for an outdoor contractor's yard and site plan review per 195-104 and any other relief deemed necessary.
Hello, good evening. My name is Casey Ferrera from Howardson Hudson Associates. I'm here with Katie Enright, also from Howardson Hudson, and CJ Martel, the owner. As you mentioned, the site is right on the corner of Mill Road and Turnpike Road at 200, or just below 200 Turnpike Road. The address is listed as off Turnpike Road, but it is known as Assessor's Map 106, Block 328, Lot 6. The site, as you mentioned, totals 1.62 acres, and it is zoned and to be permitted under the Limited Industrial, the IA District. There is no intention to use the Business Amenities Overlay District or the Community Enhancement and Investment Overlay District, solely permitted under the underlying zoning. The project does require a use special permit, being that it's an outdoor contractor's garage. This use special permit is to be granted by the planning board. And Mill Road itself is a scenic road. However, no trees or stone walls are proposed to be removed within the right-of-way as part of any driveway movement or changes. The existing site, I'm sure you've all seen it. It exists as it was proposed and approved in the late 1980s. In 2018, it was subdivided via an A&R plan from the upper lot at 200 Turnpike. So it was originally approved to be parking for the building that's located just up the hill on Turnpike at 200 Turnpike Road. It is permitted and approved as 94 parking spaces, which, if filled to capacity, would have a minimum of 188 vehicle trips per day. 94 would be in and 94 would go out. The site has a significant grade change from the front to the back. The entrance at Mill Road is at elevation 176, and the back of the parking lot is at 195, where then it even increases at about a 2-to-1 slope up to 200 Turnpike Road, so much, even more significant grade change. Along Mill Road, right at the corner of Mill and Turnpike, there is a existing drainage basin. This drainage basin was constructed and approved to take all of the stormwater that came from all the impervious at 200 Turnpike Road. When this piece was subdivided from 200 Turnpike, a drainage easement was established across the site so that all the flow coming from 200 Turnpike could continue to drain to the drainage basin. On site, on the lower lot itself, all the parking is captured by catch basins. Portions of those catch basins go into that drainage basin. Some of them go directly to the drainage infrastructure within Mill Road. The portions that go directly to Mill Road are only treated by the catch basins but don't have any proprietary treatment devices. And all of the stormwater that goes to the drainage basin, likewise, is only treated by catch basins, but there's no proprietary treatment to it as it exists. The existing site has not been used. It's underutilized. It's overgrown and it's not maintained very well. The existing pavement exists in poor condition. When I did soil testing out there, the pavement broke right through. We didn't need to saw cut it or nothing. We just broke through with the bucket. Landscaping is all overgrown. It has not been upkept, and all the drainage infrastructure is likely in poor condition. The drainage basin has been filled approximately 2 feet with debris, leaves, and other materials since its approval and design and construction. And then off to the eastern edge of the site, there's a 60-foot National Grid easement. Only about 30 feet of the easement is actually on our property, but that exists along the eastern edge of the site, right up on the right side of what you see on the screen. The proposal is to change the use into the outdoor contractor's garage. As part of this, a 3,500 square foot garage building will be added approximately adjacent to the existing drainage basin, which would be situated somewhat in the corner of Mill Road and Turnpike Road. It meets all required setbacks in the IA district. The building itself, as it pertains to the zoning bylaw, requires 7 parking spaces. However, CJ anticipates approximately 8 employees, so we've allowed enough parking for 8 employees. And then also, that includes 1 accessible space. Company vehicles will be kept on site overnight when they're not out on other sites for the business. And parking has also been established for these vehicles to be maintained and not get mixed up with the employee parking. Accommodations on site have been made for 2 40-foot trucks, 4 pickup trucks, and 4 trailer spaces as part of the business use. And in totality, if you have 8 employees with approximately 6 vehicles in and out for those employees, you're looking at between 25 to 30 vehicle trips per day in comparison to if this will remain the parking lot, 188 vehicle trips. The site entrance is proposed to be shifted approximately 75 feet to the east down Mill Road. This allowed for an easier grade change to get into the site so that the site wouldn't be incredibly steep. And because the grade change is so significant, a retaining wall down the middle of the site, you can see there's a driveway going in with some green in the middle and then a parking lot on the top. In between is going to be a retaining wall of approximately 216 feet in length, and its highest point is approximately 10 feet. It varies, and on the far left side of your screen, it's going to be tying in to be about 0, and then on the far right side, it's about 5 feet because the grade is allowed to go up. The parking, what you'll see here is from the entrance, you'll have a driveway going in. There'll be a fairly steep grade up to the parking lot of about 3 spaces. These 3 spaces are anticipated to be used by personnel that will remain in the building. And then if you continue up the driveway and go around the wall, there'll be 5 more parking spaces. Those 5 parking spaces are intended for employees who will be parking their personal vehicles, getting into a company vehicle, and then leaving the site, so they will not be really in and out of the building, so their parking is further away. The upper lot is where the vehicle storage for the business will take place. Up on that upper lot will also be material storage, things like bark mulch, logs, branches, and other materials that they have as part of their business. And this upper lot is proposed to be screened heavily with landscaping at the entrance, but also on top of the wall, the retaining wall in the middle. There will also be a 6-foot stockade fence to remain sensitive to the abutters and the residential neighbors across the street on Mill Road. Again, with the significant grade difference, there's other walls proposed on site. Wrapping the northwest corner, you'll see a wall of approximately 241 feet, of varying heights, but what that does is it's holding back the slope that goes up to Turnpike Road, and it also holds back the slope that goes up to 200 Turnpike. And then a smaller wall, if you'll notice right next to the garage, there's a driveway that goes in. That driveway into the garage is being held up by another small wall of approximately 90 feet in length. That just allows the grade change to be able to have a driveway that goes into the garage bays. In coordination with DPW, the site will be allowed to tie into the municipal sewer. And additionally, the site will be serviced by town water, National Grid, electric, and gas. Stormwater on site is proposed relatively, as it pertains to 200 Turnpike and their drainage easement. We're proposing to reroute the drainage easement, but all of the flow that was accepted before will still be accepted now. It will just be rerouted around the garage and into the drainage basin. On site, there's a series of catch basins. The upper lot and then right in front of the garage will be captured and treated before it will be sent to a new infiltration system. That new infiltration system will hold the infiltrate, and then once that is overwhelmed, it will then discharge into the existing detention basin. From the garage down the driveway to the entrance, that will be captured by 2 catch basins, treated, and then it will be discharged to the infrastructure in Mill Road as it currently does. As I said, landscaping is heavily proposed along the entrance. This was to remain sensitive to the neighboring abutters. And that just about wraps up my presentation.
Anyone have any questions? Should we bring it around? Start with you, John.
You had mentioned that there'll be logs stored on site. Would there be any cutting of logs?
CJ mentioned there may be cutting of logs in order, if they're too long, just to get them cut to size that they would need them.
Thank you.
He was in front of us before at another property on Turnpike, right? Same
believe so.
operation, you just moved it. Okay. I have no questions.
Okay.
I have no questions at this time.
Paul answered my question. I was gonna ask you what happened to that project, but you went to a different property. So, where would you be storing the logs? On which site? Up the
So
top?
we have 2 material storage locations. They're up on the top right-hand corner of the site.
How high approximately?
That, CJ, do you have any idea how high you might store them?
10, 15 feet. I just know from down on 129, they get pretty high with your competitor in the back there, so.
Oh, yeah.
So I just want to make sure that they're not going to be that high there.
No, as the other tree company,
Yeah.
they're more of almost like, you can go there and buy mulch,
Yeah, right.
dirt, I'm not doing anything like that.
How long do the trees, the trunks stay on the property? How long are you storing them for?
Within a few days.
Okay.
It's really just to get them there,
Up.
sort them,
Yeah.
you know, pine here, oak here, and then they go to a different place.
Yeah.
Mike?
I'd say the plan's pretty clear, so I don't have any questions. I think I understand it pretty well.
Tim?
I have a question about the view for the neighbors. Have you reached out to the neighbors at all on this?
We have you reached out, TJ? We have not.
Okay, just curious, because I know that site and it's the slope, and I'm just curious on the headlights or the trucks from up top, how they're gonna be, facing right into these people's houses.
So as I mentioned, on top of the retaining wall, there will be a 6-foot stockade fence, and that will cover the entirety of where the, at least 5 of the employee spaces, and then all of the parking spaces for the business vehicles.
Okay. All right, I don't have any further questions.
Chris?
Yeah. What's going to be going on inside the garage?
Inside the garage, CJ? Do you want to come speak?
Cleaning of the trucks, it's mostly just to keep my nicer trucks or nicer pieces of equipment out of the elements, especially in the wintertime, like, you come in the morning when it's 6 o'clock in the morning and it's 10 degrees, nothing
Excuse
wants
me,
to start.
I'm sorry, can you come to the microphone?
Yeah, so mostly it's just to keep certain pieces of equipment inside.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the 40-foot trucks, are those cranes?
Yeah. Yep. Crane or one of the dump trucks I have is about that long.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the driveway coming out, the exit, it looks like, if I'm looking at the map, it looks like it's directly across from the driveway of the neighbor across the street. Is that roughly where it is?
I couldn't picture exactly where the driveway is, but if
Okay.
all right.
And then I noticed on the plans, there are 2 sets of stairways that lead from the current parking lot up to the property above. What's the plan for those stairways?
Since we do not have any rights to work on the property beyond our property line, if we disassembled those stairs below the property line, they would basically be stairs that led to nothing. So we don't have any plan to remove them. But I believe CJ does want to secure the area, so there would probably be accommodations to secure it so people couldn't travel down freely.
Okay.
Yeah, I got a follow-up question. Can you tell me, I'm trying to look on the drawings here, the distance of the corner of the building on the south side to that intersection?
To the intersection?
Yeah. I know that property, it's very tight. To try to take a left there, it's very tight, or if you're taking a right, you're always looking down Mill Road from coming down Turnpike to see who's coming. Is that view gonna be blocked by that contractor's
No,
garage?
it's significantly further back. Even the drainage basin, you're looking in front of the drainage basin when you're at the intersection, and the garage is behind the drainage basin, so it's not gonna impact the view shed.
Is there a way to improve the view? The safety of, because when you get to the end of Turnpike, it is,
So DPW already pulled back the other side. The side of this property is just trees. All those, some of the trees are within the right of way that DPW could take down if they wished. But we intended on maintaining all the trees in the front to help with the screening of all the processes.
and they had a comment about the location of the dumpster. I don't see it on the plan.
Correct. So we did not have one on the plan, but if you notice on the very top where it says no parking, that is where the dumpster pad is proposed to go, and that will be added onto the next plan set.
At the corner where the entrance is, the landscaping on that corner, how far back would it be to allow for the visibility?
So the property line is 15 feet approximately off the edge of mill. So the landscaping will be at least 15 feet away from the edge of mill. We can add sightline triangles to the next plan if you'd like.
Yeah. I have a couple questions. What, obviously this is, a static question based on what you're doing now. But at the moment in your plans, say when you move in, how many large trucks and how many cranes are you anticipating to be having on the property?
How many large trucks and cranes would you be anticipating?
I have about a dozen.
Like 6 and 6, or?
No, only 2 of them are big cranes.
I see.
Yeah.
Those trees.
And then like 10 trucks?
Right.
He doesn't have, this isn't his only, I'm sorry, Katie Ann Wright from Hartstein Hudson. This isn't his only site though either. So not all of his vehicles will be held here.
Okay. And what about in the wintertime? Are you going to be plowing and going in and out in the dark?
I haven't snowplowed once since I've been in business, so I don't plan to either.
And what are your typical hours of operations? I know we discussed it on the other location, but,
Yeah.
yeah, if you don't mind.
Cranes do have to be on the road.
The guys get to the shop at 7, and they usually just let the trucks warm up, and they're out of there, and they're back anywhere between like 3 p.m. and 6 p.m. Yep.
Thank you.
Anyone else with any other questions? You have some letters?
Yes, I do have some letters. Let me run through these. Okay. From Chelmsford Fire, dear members of the board, regarding the submission of documents for the proposed contractor's yard at 200 Turnpike Road, the Fire Prevention Office finds the following. A water supply is acceptable. Hydrants are located within 500 feet of the building on Mill Road. Fire apparatus access is acceptable. Fire apparatus access shall remain unobstructed at all times. Snow storage is proposed as acceptable and shall not obstruct or impede fire access roads or turnarounds. All exits shall have sidewalks to allow a continuous path from the exit that leads to a public way. There is no dumpster location currently proposed at this site. Any proposed dumpster placement shall comply with fire code and shall not impede fire apparatus access. The applicant is reminded that all proposed flammable and combustible material storage shall require permitting from the Fire Prevention Office per the Massachusetts Fire Code, and if necessary, depending on amounts proposed, a license for storage from the Chelmsford Select Board. The applicant shall install an NFPA 72 compliant fire alarm system that is monitored by a UL-listed central station monitoring company. The applicant is advised that testing for emergency radio responder communication and, if necessary, installation of a bidirectional amplifier system shall be required according to Chelmsford Fire Department ERRC regulations. The applicant must apply to the Town of Chelmsford E911 Committee for address and unit numbering through its coordinator, Town Clerk Tricia Tsouras. This office would approve of this plan with these conditions, and I ask the board to make this letter a part of the approval process. Danielle Kutsoufis. All right. Department of Public Works from Sheila Joyce, project engineer. The engineering department has performed a review of the proposed outdoor contractor's yard at 200 Turnpike Road submitted for Martel Crane and Tree Service. The following contents of the submission were reviewed for appropriateness of method and accuracy, as well as for compliance with Town of Chelmsford Stormwater Bylaw, Town of Chelmsford Stormwater Management Regulation, Division 3, Sewer Capacity and Connection Restriction. Engineering plan entitled Site Plan for Proposed Contractor Yard off Turnpike Road, and engineering report entitled Supplemental Data Report for Proposed Outdoor Contractor's Yard. Site plan review, outstanding DPW engineering issues not addressed. Provisions for an enclosed dumpster pad and dumpster shall be depicted upon the plan sets. The long-term and perpetual care of the dumpster, including the emptying and the enclosure, would be the responsibility of the property owner. Proposed material storage area on layout and materials plan shall indicate type of material being stored and how they will be contained, i.e. fenced-in, concrete block. All existing and/or proposed utilities shall be clearly and accurately labeled, size, material, existing proposed, rim, invert, etc., on the drawing, reflecting the most updated utility connections and sizing. Trees located in the town of Chelmsford's right-of-way shall be delineated. Any trees located in the town of Chelmsford's right-of-way that will need to be removed will require a tree hearing and meeting with the tree warden for approval prior to removal. The applicant needs to confirm location and size of public trees or a statement of none included in easement. Boy, a lot of stuff in this letter. Existing and proposed drainage easement on site plan shall be clearly identified and labeled with ownership. Cut and fill calculations shall be included in the site plan. Pavement details and sidewalk detail shall be updated to reflect current MassDOT specifications, super pave mixed designs. Sewer comments. This site is a development without an existing sewer stub location. As a result, applicant analyzed sewage flow using Title V and proposed conditions to determine the sewer allocation. Submitted value of 262.5 gallons per day. Applicant will have to agree to the town of Chelmsford's sewer capacity credit transfer policy through the I&I removal at a 2-to-1 ratio. Total flow to be removed from the system with this project, 525 GPD. SMH4 drop needs to be internal. Details for sanitary sewer PVC drop connection needs to be added to the plan set. Cut sheet on sewer line with pipe material must be included on issue for construction plan. Sewer shall be 6-inch PVC SDR 35, and the use of Fernco coupling is prohibited. A sewer profile shall be added to the plan set. Okay. Recommended stormwater management conditions. Ownership as well as O&M of all stormwater systems and BMPs shall be clearly stated on the plans to avoid confusion in the future regarding responsibility of the stormwater management facility. The applicant shall indicate the depth of detention pond and its maximum storage capabilities. The elevation shall be designed to hold a 100-year storm event plus 1 foot of freeboard. The project's stormwater management system shall comply with the Department of Environmental Protection stormwater management policy, and there's a whole list of chapters here. I will leave it to the proponent to read them. The applicant must confirm the area of land disturbance. Town of Chelmsford calculated area of land disturbance based on submitted plans to be 48,248 square feet. It exceeds 1 acre. Based on this size, the site work will warrant an SWPPP, major land disturbance permit, and an NPDES permit. That's one note from there. Recommended general conditions of approval. All materials within the public right-of-way will comply with town standards as set forth in the Town of Chelmsford Department of Public Works Street Opening Utility Connection Rules and Regulations. As-built plans shall be submitted to the Engineering Department on Mylar, PDF, and AutoCAD, no larger than 24-inch by 36-inch, a D-size print, upon completion of the project. The DPW shall monitor and enforce sewer flow limitations and impose penalties for violation thereof in accordance with the town's sewer policy. All stormwater best management practices will be inspected by design engineers and certified that they are built in compliance with plans. Documentation needed includes photos, field book entries, and engineers' daily reports to be submitted to DPW with final as-built. The stormwater management system shall be maintained in perpetuity in accordance with the operation and maintenance plan. Any proposed sedimentation control device within the town's right-of-way must be maintained, inspected, cleaned, and replaced as necessary to prevent possible flooding issues during rain events. Once all site work is done and approval is granted by the DPW, any sedimentation control device must be removed by the applicant as soon as possible. Erosion control shall be installed at the direction of the engineering department if determined necessary at the time of construction. The erosion controls may include, but are not limited to, silt fence, straw wattles, straw bales, temporary sediment traps, temporary diversion swales, temporary basins, slit stacks, etc. The engineering department may also require the applicant to provide supplemental information on the placement and sizing of any additional temporary erosion controls. All handicap parking signs must meet the requirements of MGL Part 1, Title 7, Chapter 40, Section 22A, and clearly and legibly display the following message: handicap parking, special plate required, unauthorized vehicles may be removed at owner's expense. Applicant site contractor must schedule a pre-construction meeting with the DPW Engineering Division prior to the start of work. Inspections must be given prior notice, or inspectors must be given prior notice, at least 48 hours, in advance of activities requiring witnesses from the town of Chelmsford. Representative from town of Chelmsford DPW Engineering must be present to inspect bottom of infill systems prior to installation. Testing requirements will be discussed with the contractor when permits are issued for the project. An SWPPP, road opening permit, sewer permit, trench permit, NPDES permit, and land disturbance permit shall be obtained for the work described from DPW. And you'll probably all be glad to know that we had a discussion at our work session about maybe turning this into one checkbox. Next time.
TBD.
Yes. Yeah, you got that on the list. Okay, the next one up is Chelmsford Center Water District has concerns with the proposed construction of a dwelling at this site. A representative for the project should contact the Chelmsford Water District. Once the contractor has met with us, reviewed and accepted our requirements, we will forward a signed approval letter to you. In addition, the Board of Water Commissioners, upon approval of the proposed project, would request the following 4 bullets be part of your order of conditions. 1, the project shall be built to the current rules and regulations found on the district website. 2, water is for domestic use only. Water-saving devices should be utilized throughout the facility, and xeriscape landscaping shall be implemented to minimize water usage. Sincerely, Brandon Canada, Distribution Manager, Chelmsford Water District. From the Building Commissioner, dear Mr. Martell, your proposed contractor yard and garage would require a special permit from the Planning Board under 195-103. Also, you will need to meet minimum lot and yard requirements, FAR lot coverage, and building height, and any relief as deemed necessary. You have 30 days to appeal this notice with the Planning Board or BOA. I look forward to assisting you during this process. And thank you. That's from Jose Negron. And from the Board of Health, this letter is regarding the proposal for a contractor yard and garage at 200 Turnpike Road. The Health Department has a regulation that requires a model floor drain in a business garage. Please see the attached Town of Chelmsford General Provisions, Chapter 201, Board of Health, Article 10, model floor drains. You will be glad to know I'm not going to read the 4 pages of that. The Health Department has a regulation regarding dumpsters. All dumpsters must be on an impervious pad, asphalt or cement, and also enclosed. Please see the attached Town of Chelmsford General Provisions. Sincerely, Donna Greenwood, Assistant Health Director. And there you have it.
All right. Then I will entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
Motion to open a public hearing.
Second.
Shall we, all in favor to open the public hearing?
Aye.
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
Thank you.
Richard Freitas, Precinct 9, Town Meeting Representative, 11 Muriel Road. I'm basically here to provide information. And I know we're in the beginning stages, and we have probably a long way to go. I'm not sure if everybody in the room is familiar with that intersection, but it was on the 210 master plan as being one of the dangerous places in town. Town received approximately $80,000 to, as the gentleman said, the right side of Turnpike was improved. It was pushed back. But the town could not do anything on the left side because they did not own the property. If you get a chance, I recommend that you drive down Turnpike towards the bottom of Mill and look to the left. There's terrible sight lines. There's a small, which is in their plan, a small guardrail. Now, if the town, DPW, takes care of that every summer, if the grass grows over the guardrail, you cannot see oncoming traffic from Route 3. There has been terrible accidents there over the past. I don't understand where they're putting the 6-foot stockade in the front. It appears to me that if you make a higher level fence, you might be completely blocking the sight line. Because when people come down the road, they can see very little of the cars coming towards them. It has improved tremendously since they took care of the right side. If the structure is placed in the wrong location, it will block the sight line. And in the winter, when it snows and Turnpike is plowed, another situation occurs. The snow is put up over the guardrail and nobody can see anything. Now, I just want to bring this forward, and if you go and improve this, that you really look at the situation thoroughly, and it can be developed so maybe it will improve, because Turnpike is a 13 incline, and nothing can be done with Turnpike. They're not going to go in, they can't lower the level of Turnpike. So I think if you put trees along Turnpike, you're going to completely block any resident that has a chance to look down into Mill and see if any cars are coming. I just don't want to make the situation worse, because the town has gone a lot of time and a lot of money to improve the safety on that intersection. So I hope you thoroughly look at sight lines, and maybe you can improve on it. Maybe you can make it even a safer intersection if you move forward. I just wanted to bring that to your attention. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Chris Bowman, Precinct 10 Representative, 3 Julio Street. The first question on this project is it allowed in the IA district? It is for an outdoor contractor's yard according to the use regulation schedule. The second part of this question is, which hasn't been answered, is this project appropriate at this particular site? That answer is no. This site is directly across from a well-established residential neighborhood, over 60 years old. You have residents living along Mill Road who have been there that long or longer. You have just up the road, across from 200, the Millstone community that has been there for a good number of years. Just beyond that, you have child care, daycare center, and you have other residents who have been there 60 or more years. Mill Road was never intended to be an industrial business type road. It was intended for residents. What was put in there in 1980 was just office buildings, which are pretty much inconsequential as far as noise and dust and pollution and safety issues and health issues, which this particular project represents. In addition to that, regardless of how many catch basins there are during intense rainfall, these catch basins fill up very quickly and overflow. That overflow is going to come right down into the neighborhood. And it's not going to be clean. You're going to have gasoline, you're going to have oil, and whatever else. The increase in sediment coming down from that area is going to be tremendous. Now, in addition to that, as the building inspector pointed out, the project is going to have to get a permit from this planning board in order for its project to be approved. Now, the special permit criteria requires a lot of things to be reviewed and considered by this board, which you do know, but for those who don't know, I'd like to just read it out here. Criteria: special permits shall be granted by the special permit granting authority unless otherwise specified herein, only upon the written determination that the adverse effects of the proposed use will not outweigh its beneficial impacts to the town or the neighborhood. In view of the particular characteristics of the site and of the proposal in relation to that site, in addition to any specific factors that may be set forth in this chapter, the determination shall include consideration of each of the following: social, economic, or community needs which are served by the proposal. 2, traffic flow and safety, including parking and loading. 3, adequacy of utilities and other public services. 4, neighborhood character and social structures. Impacts on the natural environment and potential fiscal impact, including impact on town services, tax base, and employment. There are no benefits here to the residents. The only possible benefit to the town is a very minor commercial tax. That's it. There is extreme detriment to the neighborhoods, like I said before, in health and safety issues, increased pollution, increased noise. This will produce dust. There's going to be increased surface and stormwater runoff with sediment. People walk along these roads, and they walk along these roads primarily either themselves or their pets, sometimes with their kids when the kids are older, and also their bicycle. This is a clear safety issue. The property values and the quality of life of the people who live here are going to be significantly degraded. This is not right, especially when there are places in town that are very appropriate for this type of business. Right off of Route 129, Billerica Road, at Industrial Avenue, where there are already contractor yards, and also along Stewart Street, which is off of Omni.
Okay, that's past the, suggesting areas where this business could go is past what we're trying to determine here. We have a specific plan in front of us, and we have a specific location for the plan. And I personally, our job is to grant and review applications for special permits. So I feel that for you to read us lengthily the qualifications for a special permit is somewhat disrespectful and not the best use of.
It was never, ever intended to be
Okay,
disrespectful.
well, that, I'm
No,
just expressing
I'm
to
just
you.
letting you know where I'm coming from.
But I
am
don't want to
sorry-
hear recommendations
I'm
of
sorry
different
if you
locations.
feel that way. Well, the point is that this is not the only site in town, and there are more appropriate sites.
Okay.
That's all.
Is that the
It was
point?
just
Are we done now?
pointing- It was just pointing something out.
Okay.
That's all.
So have you gotten to the point, now we're done?
Almost,
Okay.
okay? The residents come first. This town is made of the residents. This is the wrong site for this particular project. There is no benefit to the residents. There is a smidgen of benefit possibly to the town. So according to the special permit process, according to the CEIOD, and according to the...
We're not using the CEIOD.
I'm wrapping up.
They're using the underlying zoning. The CEIOD is not relevant.
I respectfully disagree based upon the specifics within the CEIOD. And this is, and also the scenic roads, which is a town bylaw. Therefore, there's more than enough information here for the detriments of this project to the residents for this particular site, for this planning board to deny the project in total. I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
So I'm Victor Garofalo. I represent the Milestone Condominium Association. I just have one question. I know they talked there was not going to be any snow removal, but what about emergency tree removal, like in a storm? Will they be accessing the property after hours between like after 9 p.m., midnight, and those type of hours? So I'd like to get an answer on emergency tree removal and how that will impact the noise in that area.
Yes, we've discussed this at the other property.
Some of us weren't listening to the meeting for the other property.
Yeah.
Could you
come up and-
could you come up and speak
Yeah.
to the?
Sure. Yeah, you guys keep mentioning stuff you guys already talked about the other property. We don't know because I wasn't paying attention to that.
Wait, I was asking if.
He was gonna get up and explain. the
Oh,
owner.
sorry, I thought you were asking me to.
So was the question was, do we do emergency work, basically?
Yes.
A handful of times a year, yeah. You know, especially when it's hurricane season. So, you know, June to November being the worst. July and August when it's really hot and humid. You know, we get bad storms. Trees can come down on houses. Usually, how it goes is, I get woken up at nighttime. I go to someone's house and I see the tree on their house, and usually it's still pretty stormy outside. So like, I'm not going to send a crew right then and there. So usually I just look at the job and say, okay, we'll be there first thing in the morning. That's usually. Is there a few times that like it has to be done that second and like it's not windy and we can go and do it safely at nighttime? Yeah, we'll start the stuff up in the evening and leave and go to someone's house. But, you know, we're not just hanging out at the shop. The goal is to get out of the shop to get the tree off the person's house. So very rarely would there be, you know, starting up the trucks at night, I guess is the answer to the question.
Thank you.
Hi, Joel Luna, 10 Carter Drive, Precinct 10 Rep. You asked a number of good questions. I appreciate that. Had a couple more. One is, has there been a traffic study done? I heard some traffic numbers referenced, but has there been a traffic study done? That's a question that I'd like to ask the applicant through the board, through the chair. No? Okay. What I was going to request is, because the number of issues that have been raised, and this was the same thought I had when I was looking at the application, is whether the board would request a traffic peer review for the purpose of establishing what they think the traffic volumes actually will be. Also, to give you recommendations on the sight lines, to assess the sight lines, and then also to identify recommended turning. In this case, because of I'm familiar with the intersection as well, and in the winter, imagining large vehicles coming down Turnpike to Mill Road, we'd just like to get a professional's assessment as to whether it's better to come on Mill Road at that point. And so that was one thing that I would ask the board to ask for is a traffic peer review, in this case because of the sensitivity of the intersection. And then the other one was that if you do indeed ultimately approve this with conditions, I would ask that one of those conditions be that this use be permitted for this owner only, because it's because of this if you find that this particular use with this owner is acceptable, you don't necessarily know that it will be an acceptable use with a separate owner, particularly with this kind of use. So I would ask that you put that restriction as well. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Should we discuss that? The traffic review? I don't think it's necessary.
No, I think that's just weaponizing the possibility.
The sightlines, if you look at, it's 60 feet back.
Should we see, before we
Okay.
go back into discussion, if there's any other, anyone else from the public that wanted to speak?
Can I just quickly address one of the comments? We would just be happy to meet with DPW on site to see if there's any improvements that we can make to the sightlines at the intersection.
Thank you.
That are within our property and within our control, that is.
Sure.
And I know police, I think, sent an email to me prior to the departmental review meeting on the sight lines. I was expecting a follow-up formal letter, so I know they reviewed it, but I don't have any specifics other than I don't think they had any significant concerns. But I will follow up with them and ask them to submit a formal letter.
Is there a way for us to see, again, like the side view of this, like how it looks, I don't know, like from either turn, because it's a weird sloped piece of property, but like how does it look from the
Can we
street up?
go
or-
back to the public hearing and close the public hearing?
Sorry.
Before we do more discussion? You're from the public, right?
Jeremy Brown, 207 Mill Road, across the street. The one on the bottom is me. I don't know that sightlines are going to be a big deal from where the property is. It's not good. It's a lot better now that you got the blinking stoplight there, but I don't think their property is going to affect the bottom of Turnpike Road.
The other way.
Yeah, it's not so much that you can do much about it. This is labeled 200 Turnpike. I don't know why. I don't think it's 200 Turnpike, but the notifications may have gone out for informing residents off the idea that it was 200 Turnpike. I don't know if you have a list of people you sent mail to, but there's multiple residents near me that didn't get letters or didn't see them or whatever. So I think we may have missed that. And I know last time I saw this with the dog kennel they were doing, they had on one of these things was the map of 300 feet from the property and where they sent mail to. I didn't see that this time. I did see all this paperwork or plans and stuff ahead of time because the website on Chelmsford now has that. So that's great that you guys have all that stuff on there. It helped answer a ton of questions, helped line up some of the questions I had. So notifications of residents. Someone mentioned sidewalks are one of the things, but it's not on any of the plans. So they mentioned sidewalks down to off the site, and they're not on the plan, so I wasn't sure if they were going to add that piece. Water is obviously my biggest concern as someone downstream from this property. I don't really think you guys should have ever let them subdivide it because this whole piece of property was essentially a water sink for paving the entire top of the hill, right? And that's how they do it. They had to have an easement for the water because all the water flows down from the top of the hill through this property, which is why it's shaped how it is. And they're reshaping it in the same way. I didn't really get enough explanation on the water filtration stuff they were putting in. There was some type of water, something treating it somehow, mitigation they were putting in the middle there. But essentially all the water from the top comes down and runs into this pond here, and there's drains all along that run into there. It runs from there across the street, and it makes it out into the backyard. And the backyards of the other two properties on here, the two on the right, are wetlands. And that's where the water coming down comes, and it comes down Turnpike, and it comes down all through that. So there's a lot of water, including once you guys did that, built in the 80s, you messed up the water for a lot of people below you. And it's been a long time trying to get it straight and right. So any of the, you're moving more than an acre of material to make the driveway suitable to bring in the bigger trucks. Please don't screw up the water table, because that is the end of people's homes, right? The lights on the property now are triggered by motion sensor. That's nice because it's all dark when there's no one there all night. It would be nice if that would be kept. The lights mentioned didn't have anything like that, but if I could have one thing, it would be that the lights are off when no one's there. The definition of a contractor's garage is not something listed on Chelmsford, any of the documentation I could find. I saw contractor's yard, but we're building a yard and garage here. To some degree, if it's a garage and it's not, there's no definition of contractor's garage, as close as I could get was garage, that's another approval they need from another board to get that in. I don't know if that's in play or not, but when I was reading the descriptions and trying to figure out what they were doing with the property before we got a little more detail, were they selling stuff on site? Were they doing commercial? And it seems like that's not the case. But are they chipping and making bark mulch on site? That's not the case. Just trimming logs.
We don't do mulch.
Don't do mulch. You're not selling mulch. Those are all great, but things I couldn't understand because contractor garage is not defined. And therefore, when you're having a permit with it in the name, I couldn't figure out exactly what you were going to do with it. And if it is just a straight garage, it should probably fall under the straight garage acceptable permit, which I believe you can do in that area, but you need someone else's approval for it. Fence on top of the retaining wall, it does appear to be there, and I think the idea is not to let the light through, which is nice to see. Again, I like the idea of this is great. The biggest challenge here is people hear contractor yard, and you look at them, they're a mess, and they're crap everywhere, and they're leaking stuff, and the trucks and stuff. This could be better, right? This is a tree operation, it's a little different, but if you open it up, it's a contractor's yard, and you set a precedence of that there, across from residential neighborhoods, who's gonna use it down the road? What's the use case? Does it pivot? Do you sell to someone who does do mulch, or does do these other things? So concern there, as well as if you could put a specific note in that says, this is for this unit person only, that would be great. The stairways that are coming down right now are essentially going to be stairways to the top of a 5-foot wall. And for me, it seems like you're taking a lot of places that are extremely sloped right now. You're then cutting off 5 feet at the bottom and sticking a retaining wall up. And again, water flow, and they already built this site to the maximum steepness they could on every angle to put in the flattest parking lot they could put in, because they had to dig up the site anyway to put in all the water drainage when they did the building at the top of the stairs anyway. So you're taking something you've already optimized and you're optimizing it more to kind of wedge in something that is workable for the user. So I thought that was pushing it a little far on those pieces. Snow, I'm not sure where the snow was going to get stored. Doesn't look like there's any spot for me. And if you put in a dumpster with a fence around it, like I guess they're supposed to, I don't know where they're going to have room to turn around these trucks, because I believe those spots are so they can make that 40-foot turn with a 40-foot trailer on some big rigs. Hey, if they think they can make it work, good for them, but that's really tight. Yeah, the other piece I was trying to figure out was the current location of the yard. I was like, oh, well, where do they do it? And I don't know if you have an address that I could go by and say, hey, this is where all your stuff's certainly set up now, and kind of get a peek of what is about to be across the street, would be great. So those are my pieces. Again, the noise was a concern, chipping and doing, work on property, trucks starting up and running out of there, middle of the night stuff, a lot of that you got into. So thank you for the time.
Thank you.
Good evening and thank you. David Lasky, Precinct 9, Milestone Estates Condominium, 3 Milestone. My biggest probably concern is noise and activity. As has sort of been addressed a little bit, this will be a 24-hour emergency operation. To give you an idea, just sometimes how we're impacted by the current industrial zone, I was woken up Monday morning at 4:36, 4:39, and 4:41 by loud banging that sounded like somebody throwing refrigerators into dumpsters. So even now, we still have 1,000 to 1,500 feet away, large type of banging and noise and stuff that still comes through the current areas. And so when you start having 40-foot cranes, these that will have the backup beepers and everything else. There's a potential for a lot of noise in the middle of the night that's frequent. When I look at these plans, having lived in our sort of association where we sometimes run into issues with snow removal and how you do that, when I look at how you're going to try to clear these sort of lots, and if you have 2 or 3 feet of snow, where is that going to go? Because when I see the amount of open space in these parking lots, and you're going to have to start trying to plow those out and trying to move that snow, that's a big concern for me, especially when you have a lot of equipment, that you have a lot of washing of oils, gasoline, and other sorts of materials. It, to me, just has, some very potential concerns. Overall, I think it's an okay use, but there's a lot of questions. The other one is when I see that the contractor's garage, really understanding what's going on in there. When I looked at some of the bylines, the usage and everything else, there are certain things prohibited in terms of repairs and some of the other ones, and where some of those things are and where some of those things aren't. And so it becomes a different matter if they're doing a lot of maintenance and work in these garages where you have a lot of solvents and a lot of other things where you can have a lot of spill off and a lot of chemicals and everything else that get into the tables. So really having a clear understanding of what is the work that's going to be taking place within that garage. It's one thing if it's just storing vehicles. It's another thing when you're doing maintenance, changing oil, washing off vehicles, where you're going to have a lot of runoff of the chemicals and everything else. So thank you very much for your time.
Hi, my name's Doreen Deschler, Precinct 9. I'm just up here to speak for the residents. Again, residents not being informed. So I would just ask that you please not make any decision right now until we can get all the residents informed so that they can all know what's going on, and if they want to come here and speak, they can be here. That's the only thing I ask for. Thank you.
Thank you.
All legal abutters were notified.
Maybe we could get the list up at some point.
Yeah, it's in the file.
Okay.
But all properties within 300 feet of the subject property were notified.
No, excuse me, when you say the subject property, because the notice
This
said...
map block and lot per the,
Okay,
per the legal.
but not necessarily what is actually 200.
Correct.
That's a different, it's weird, because that's a different address. It comes,
So-
like, it.
Yeah, right, there's some...
This does not have an address. It's off Mill Road.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Can I ask
It
a
has a
question?
map block and lot.
Is there anyone on the Zoom who may
There's
have
an
their
Amy
hand up?
Brown. I don't know if she's interested in speaking on this.
Is there-
No, thank you. My husband's in attendance.
Okay. All right, so is there no more individuals who would like to speak during the public hearing? Is that correct for the moment? Shall we
If you want to continue.
continue the public hearing? Can I have a motion to continue the public hearing, please?
Are you talking about the entire hearing or just the public portion of it?
The public hearing.
Just the public.
Just the public portion,
Yeah.
so we can talk again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I make a motion to continue the public portion
Yes.
of the meeting.
Second.
Yep.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
Okay, so then shall I take a motion to continue our discussion?
Well, it might be worth seeing if these guys have a list of things that they can reasonably go back and
Accommodate.
report on.
Hi, real quick, just to kind of respond to a little bit of that. I know like I said, with the sightline issues at Turnpike, we can definitely work with DPW. All of the landscaping on site will be under an operations and maintenance schedule. So the landscaping on site should be maintained to maintain any kind of sight lines. I know that was one of the concerns. And again, the site will meet all stormwater standards. All the stormwater from the site is proposed to go to infiltration devices or to remain flowing how it does and how it was already approved. We're not increasing stormwater. Everything is detained, treated, and actually improved upon from the previous condition. I know you guys discussed a little bit, but we don't believe that the traffic from this site is going to warrant a full traffic study. And again, we're happy to work with DPW however necessary to do what we can. The building is an accessory use to the overall contractor's yard. That's why we're permitting under an outdoor contractor's yard. And the building will just be used, as CJ said, for bringing in vehicles. It'll have a drain like the Board of Health requested, which will then be connected to the sewer with the treatment devices that are required for a interior drain. And the lights, we're just going to improve upon what's already there. Those lights are from the 80s. All the lights that we plan on installing will be will conform to the current town requirements, full cutoffs, dark sky compliant, etc. So.
What about snow storage and removal?
The snow storage, we have a note on the plan that says in excess of the site's capacity, all snow will be required to be removed. So in small events, when it can just be plowed to the side and along the curb lines, that's what will happen. In significant storm events, all the snow will have to be trucked off site and disposed of accordingly.
We'll make room at the material storage.
What I talked about with CJ is if there's room for somewhere for the snow to go, if he's not storing that truck there, it's at another property, he can use that space. But for the permitting process, if it's over the capacity of the site, it'll have to get trucked off site.
And will the lights still be motion sensor?
CJ, would you put in motion sensor lights or?
I would say, yeah, if it's, you guys would prefer it.
And what about the dumpster and the location vis-a-vis the trucks turning around? Is there?
So that location was actually for fire access. We have met again with Danny from Fire Prevention to revise the fire access, so that area can now be used for the dumpster location. The fire access didn't actually need that area, so we have a turnaround further down where there's no parking that can be utilized, so that middle section can be turned into the dumpster location. So access is not impeded by that.
What's the height of the building?
Height of the building?
We haven't even talked about the structure.
I think you submitted some plans, right?
I didn't see any,
I didn't see any
elevations.
Yeah, there wouldn't be a,
So,
not dimension, but
I have to pull it up, I think it's like roughly 16 feet tall at its highest point. It's gonna have 14-foot tall doors, right? So maybe more like
ridge
close to
line,
18 feet tall.
To the ridge.
So, yeah.
so and you're strictly using this for parking of trucks. So if it's strictly used for parking your trucks, there has to be another special permit that you're asking for in the IA. So it's either you're gonna classify it as an indoor, by right, you can have an indoor shop.
Okay.
But if you're putting a parking garage in there,
So it's-
it's a separate,
we define parking garage. This is not a parking garage.
well, he's saying it's a truck garage.
It's not a parking garage.
No, it's
It's for a parking garage for trucks.
as the building in the contractor's yard.
Right.
It's an enclosed shop where vehicles can be stored, and a piece of it will be office.
Okay. So that just expanded, so now you're an office now, part of this.
Well, there'll be a desk in the corner with a computer on it to do
Okay.
scheduling. Which is why there's basically two employees that will be on site. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
So right now CJ has it planned as essentially a big open box. Because he doesn't have, there's no need for any interior walls. Essentially, there's the idea that there'll be a big open box that vehicles can come in. He can do work or store them if the weather is bad. He can sit down at a computer and potentially do some business while he's there. And not have any real kind of structure inside. I imagine there'll be a bathroom facility for whomever's on site, but nothing. And essentially, it meets, if you look at the contractor's yard definition, it talks about a site where the primary use is to store things on site, but there's also a building as part of it that can have certain items within it. So the intention is not to just have it be a storage location. There'll actually be a person or two on site during the day, during office hours.
So Katie, regarding the traffic piece of it, would CJ, just a question, would you consider, if this did go forward, a left turn only coming out of your garage, heading towards 129, and then you're only allowed to come in from 129? You cannot take a right turn and head for a turnpike. I mean, that's something you should consider. I mean, that's something, if this goes down this road, because I think that's something I'm gonna recommend.
It's not, that wouldn't really make or break it for me, you know?
I mean, it's just that if your trucks are coming down Turnpike and
Was
they're
that done
braking.
to any additional office space that goes down? I know Thermo Fisher was recently in front of the town. Did they have to go left out of their site? I mean, that's the thing is, like, this whole side of the road is industrial,
I
and then
understand
it
that.
picks up at Zoll and is industrial. So it's just, I mean, certainly he could sign it and ask people. I think people would automatically want to go that way anyway, but as far as patrolling, you know, the 8 vehicles that are coming and going during the day, I guess I'm saying we could certainly put a sign up and ask people to not go that way.
I just think everyone's concerned about that intersection, and I think we need more study of that intersection. I think if he suggests that I'm not even gonna go near that intersection, even coming back
There's
home
been significant
or
study
going out.
of the intersection. I think the client at the Kinlock provided significant monies. Also, Mill and Threes provided monies to study the intersection, and that's when the improvements were created. So the engineering department already has those studies and the improvements for what needs to be done. And I think if there was a problem with, I drive this road every day. My office is on Turnpike. Sometimes I go out to Mill because my mom lives on Mill. Sometimes I go out the other way to go to 129. Just depends on where I'm going that day, if I'm going south or north on Route 3. It's significantly better. We're going to meet with DPW. Obviously, we have control over this corner. CJ can mow it on a regular basis, so that kind of grass growing over the guardrail on that side can be fixed. I don't think there are any trees in the way, but if there are, if Christine and or Tony want to go out and meet with Casey on site, we could certainly add that to the plan as far as taking additional trees down. And if adding a sign saying left turn only is what this board finds appropriate for the amount of use, then he's certainly amenable to do that.
My biggest concern on that left versus right turn is not necessarily just the cars, but a 40-foot crane trying to take a right onto Mill Road and going down a winding Mill Road. Or the trucks with the trailers going down that way. So I would have no problem with cars going that way. To me, it's the cranes and the larger trucks that shouldn't be going that way.
So I think most of the
You're talking
time
about
it's,
going on
I
the
think
screen here, turning right?
Turning right.
Yes, you're coming out, you're turning left, there's only 7 homes down there, and then you go into an.
No, I know, I'm saying.
That's the way they're gonna go.
If you turn right and head up
They're not gonna
Mill
pound
Road.
gears going up the hill.
No, I'm saying instead of,
I'm trying to get them away from that intersection.
yeah, I am
Yeah,
too.
I think you
And
guys-
I'm saying, I'm
We're
agreeing
the
with
same
you.
thing.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just afraid, they're working down Turnpike somewhere,
Yeah.
and they decide to come down down Turnpike, down the hill.
Yep.
Our restrictions would force them around 129 and then come in a different route.
Yes.
Right.
That's what I'm just talking about.
Yes.
Trying to alleviate that.
Yeah.
We're on the same page. Good. Thank you, Chris.
well, and I think just to clarify, they're a local business dealing with local homeowners and local commercial residents who are having either issues with trees or need to have tree removal, so they're going to go to where they're needed, right, from the site in the most appropriate way that they can get there for the vehicle that they need for said job. So
I don't think it's needed myself, but.
So if you're not going to be, TJ, if you're not going to be plowing in the winter, the business will be much less active in the winter, is that correct?
Yeah, a lot of times in the winter, we only work 2 to 3 days a week. If there's a big snowstorm, like we're not working the following day when there's still tons of snow on the ground, and usually we'll get to work the day after. So some weeks, like if it snows on a Monday, we're not working Monday and Tuesday. We'll get a work day and Wednesday. So yes, in the wintertime, it's a lot more quiet. And it gets dark out at 4 p.m. So when we do go to work, leave at 7 a.m., the guy's usually always back before 4 because we're really not cutting trees at nighttime. you know.
Thank you.
One of the questions I would have for DPW, if they're doing the work on reviewing this, is the water that might be coming from that top site down those stairs. If the stairs remain and we're doing development on that bottom site, is the water going to be coming down those stairs and adding to the volume of water, stormwater, if they're not removing the stairs? And so I know that it's a separate property, but since they were the ones that subdivided it, I'm wondering if there's something we might be able to do
No,
with that other property.
This subdivision, the criteria that we use for subdivision are extremely limited. We
Oh,
do
I
not
know
look at
that.
use. I mean, it's just,
But I
do
mean,
they
as
have
a
the
condition
frontage?
of developing that,
That's,
because the
yeah.
conditions are
Yeah.
very different for this.
True, and but that's a different animal. It's
Yeah.
different from the subdivision. I mean, the fact that we subdivided it probably should not be relevant.
No, I'm saying the fact that it's subdivided in a different property now makes those stairs useless.
Yeah, problem, or it makes them,
More problematic.
Yeah, that's for sure. It might be possible to simply block them at the top to keep water from coming
I
down.
don't know, but I'm wondering if there's something,
Yeah.
at least the DPW could take a look to see
Yeah.
if there's water coming down there.
We can also work with the adjacent property owner to see if they'd be amenable to us just removing the stairs as part of our project. So if they'll allow us to do that work, we can do that work.
Yeah, that's a good
Yeah,
idea.
I doubt they have any interest in those stairs.
They've been on the property.
Yeah.
Okay. So, where are we? I don't see us making a determination of any sort this evening. So,
Continue the meeting.
Yeah.
we
Go
continue,
ahead and continue.
we'll continue the hearing and move along to,
Do you want me to make a motion to
Yeah, make a
continue?
motion.
I'll make a motion to continue, what is this address? 200 Turnpike Road to, what's the next date?
May 10th.
May 10th?
Second.
Aye.
Aye.
I,
aye.
Yep, you got it.
Tim's also an aye.
Yes. Thank you, have a good night.
Thank you.
So, next we're on to 25 Wellman Ave, the Lighthouse School.
Is there a letter of continuance in the file?
Okay, continued.
Oh, there is?
Okay, I haven't seen that yet.
I didn't see that either.
For
You can continue to May 10th.
Okay.
the Lighthouse School?
Lighthouse is continued?
Yes.
Okay.
When did that come in?
Do we need to vote on it? Make a motion to continue? I make a motion to continue the 25 Wellman Ave Lighthouse School to May 10th?
I'll second that.
Aye.
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 Tim?
Aye.
Oh, that's huge.
Okay. On to 18 to 20 Chelmsford Street.
They've also requested a continuance, May 10th.
Okay.
It's getting shorter and shorter.
All right.
All right, I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion to continue the public meeting for 1820 Chelmsford Street to May
May 10th.
10th as well?
Second.
Aye.
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 And it
Mike
looks,
Walsh?
Aye.
and it looks like, yeah, it's an aye.
Unanimous. Tim is also an aye.
And it looks like 264 is also a requested continuance, so.
So I have a question on that. I
Yes.
mean, hopefully it'll come up in our rules and regulations or policies committee, but, is there some amount of time past which we're supposed to be making decisions? Or it does, or, I mean, the
Yeah, so the
clock just
statutory,
keeps moving
the
out?
statutory timeframes in which the board has to make a decision, but they're extended when an applicant requests a continuance.
Okay.
Can I ask you a question about this particular one? I heard something, don't know if it's true or not. Are they trying to go to the zoning board at the same time as us?
No, my understanding is that the issue with Lot 1 has been resolved.
Okay.
They don't have to go in front of the appeals board.
Right.
Okay, I was just wondering how that works.
I mean, they certainly could have, but I think they've resolved it, and I think the building commissioner has issued a letter to that effect. I think it may have been today.
Great, thank you.
So I would expect they'll be back in front of you on May 10th.
Okay, I'll move to continue then.
I'll second then, you're making.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, it's unanimous. All right, so now we're up to new business. So we had discussed having a policy and procedures subcommittee last time, and we kind of bounced ideas around. I had originally planned to propose that John be on it, but as the liaison appointments were going along and he was getting overloaded during town meeting session, I kind of retreated from that. And then we talked about various options, but in the end, I think it's in our interest, for a number of reasons, to have just Mike and Chris serve as that subcommittee. We don't have to worry about any open meeting problems or violations. They can work
Yeah.
independently, take it off in chunks.
I think what we can do here is, because we've already met once.
Yep.
Gone back and forth. It would develop a good, solid draft.
Yep.
And there are things in there that we are going to have to discuss, because we don't agree on everything, but that's okay. If we did,
Shocker.
one of us would be irrelevant, right? So when we have, a draft with some potential alternatives and point out what needs to be discussed, I think we bring it back here. And then, if you wanted, you could expand the size of the committee at that point if you needed to. But
Yeah.
I'm not sure that we will. I think we'll probably be able to do it ourselves.
I think so too.
Perfect. That sounds great. I thank you both for your work. So, open meeting law discussions, I mean, I think part of that is gonna be part of the policy and procedures, but, I don't know if there's other particular aspects that people wanted to discuss or revisit.
Well, it strikes me that we put enough into place now to have some reasonable security. And I think when we get through the policy and procedure stuff, we may be able to fine tune some of the
Tune it up.
language that goes around that.
Okay.
Liaisons?
Liaison updates. Anyone have any updates yet? It's been a pretty short interval and we had town meetings, so.
I actually do.
Yeah, and I do.
Conservation met yesterday, so it's been a busy week.
Show off.
Not my fault. So yeah, the Conservation Commission met yesterday. I met with them, and they are also reviewing Lighthouse at the same time. They've continued, they did the initial presentation, now they've continued a second time, or to another meeting. Let's see, where's my notes? They are in the process of looking, Peter is working with Evan and a number of other folks to look at low-impact development guidelines for submitting for grant funding, putting forward a proposal that we can maybe get some grant funding to implement low-impact guidelines across town. So they're working with DPW and a number of other groups to start that discussion. And so I'm going to plug into that as well. They also met with DPW about stormwater and got some good information there, similar to what we did today. So that'll be good start to get the three groups working a little bit more closely together on stormwater issues. And that's really it.
Okay. I have a little.
Okay.
First, I sat next to Badri at the Monday town meeting, so I'm on his list now, and I'll be going to
Did he get you on speed dial?
Yeah, well, I don't know if he's got me on speed dial yet. So I will be plugging into that fairly shortly. That's bound to be energetic, because he's a very energetic fellow. The second thing is, and this is with my master plan implementation committee hat on, the next master plan implementation committee meeting, I believe, is the 17th of May. Now, there's nothing particular there for that meeting that is going to engage the planning board, but I want to point out, again, I think I did it last time, that a number of the items on the master plan list of things have planning board as an interested party. I mean, we're probably the most interested party in that. So, and as the year goes on with the quarterly master plan meetings, we're going to want to look specifically at things that show the planning board particular interest, and probably go down them and, a one-line report on anything where we've actually done something. And I know that there are several items on there for which we've already, at least touched the topic. So when we want to do that, I don't know. I'd suggest that maybe if Evan could put together a list that's just the planning board stuff, and then maybe at a work session to be named later, we can just go down the list and come to some consensus about where we're at. Because that's going to come up probably I think the fourth meeting this
Either
year.
August or November.
Yeah, I'm sure the November meeting will have some content that's ours, and possibly August as well. So that was just kind of a request, but, put it on your calendar, something to do. Which also covers items for work session.
Right.
2 for 1.
So items for work session, we actually had written last time that we wanted to put the open meeting law on this agenda because something came up last time that Paul Haverty recommended we not discuss at that time because we hadn't put it on the agenda. But now I can't remember what it was.
Was that particular, no, he discussed the recent case, didn't he?
No, the
No,
meeting
something
was
else.
diverging into something else.
Yeah.
I think Anita made a special request.
Yeah, and I believe he's working on that.
Okay.
Ran into him on town meeting, so we were talking a
Okay,
little bit about
good.
it.
So it's just.
He wasn't able to answer the question. He didn't want to
Yeah, go
engage in that question when he had to do some research too. It wasn't specifically on the agenda.
Okay.
I can't remember what the
Okay,
question was.
so let's
but-
can we put it on next time's agenda as well?
Yeah, well, I mean, the second bullet, continued open meeting law discussions.
Yeah,
That was the intent, if Haverty was
ready to.
able already.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
and
we
again, I
can
can't remember the
put it
specific.
back on if he's ready.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we gotta do that early on the 10th? Are we gonna do 45 minutes before the meeting? Is that how we're doing it now? The
Well,
work session?
let's go on and think about what else do we want to discuss at the work session, and then decide when to have the work session based on what we want to discuss. So that's one thing, the open question
Will
with
the
Paul
subcommittee
Haverty.
be
When
ready
is
for
the
anything?
subcommittee, if you
Yeah,
guys
yeah,
will
I
be
think we
ready?
can do
Yeah, we'll
something.
have something ready.
That's enough right
Yeah,
there.
okay.
Yeah, that'll take up
Yeah.
enough time.
Just a
Oh,
question on the subcommittee. So if we, as a member, want to provide, like, if we've read through the policies and we want to provide input to, like, Mike Reisbeck and Chris as the subcommittee, is there any, like, protocol? Like, should we copy the other members of the board so they can see what we're suggesting? Or do you want us to, like, would I copy Deirdre as chair? Or
I don't know.
Question.
Just send it to them?
Yeah,
Usually,
just
send it
to them.
usually it's the best bet to take stuff like that, send it to Evan, and have Evan send it back out.
Why, we were talking about, like, he has a specific recommendation
For
for
what
sub,
you
you
do,
got, you two are
yeah.
working
Yeah, I
on.
would just
I
send
would
it to
just,
just the two
Okay.
of us.
just to
All
send to
right,
the
that
two of us,
works.
and then they can
We'll go with that,
incorporate
yeah.
it when they present the board. No need to get,
And I think in general, if people have particular areas of interest or expertise with regards to policies and procedures, like clearly John has accounting
Yeah.
and fiscal thoughts that I don't have that expertise in town governance. And so anyway, if other people have other things that they're particularly interested in, engineering maybe.
Yeah, because there are things that, I mean, it's limited right now based on the few policies that Evan was able to dig up, plus the ones that we talked about at the meeting, plus my suggestions. So if you have others that we could include in, feel free to send them in and we'll add them in to the full discussion.
Okay, yeah, I'll probably have a few of my own, too.
Oh, yeah.
We'll
And if we
beef that
could
up.
get them as soon as possible before the meeting, so we have a chance
Yes.
to, like,
Oh, yeah.
Well, I
think
think
about it
we're
and-
we're shooting for next Thursday.
Thursday.
So.
So we'll have a draft after that
Right,
Thursday.
right.
perfect. Okay, so then can we, should we do 45 minutes before again? Does that work well for people? So 6:45 meeting start for next time?
Or 6:30 to 7:15, you mean?
I mean, 6:30 to 7.
Yeah, that
yes.
worked.
Yeah, it worked fine.
I almost didn't make it, but made it.
All right. And then, yeah, I guess,
Deirdre, I just had one other item I forgot to mention from the
Sure.
conservation meeting. I did want to mention as a heads up, an early heads up, the Lunas brought forward a request or a suggestion to the Conservation Commission to potentially rezone the River Meadowbrook Refuge area from IA to something else.
A public it could be.
Yeah, something like that.
There's
So
those
they
categories.
wanted to get the Conservation Commission's thoughts on it. They seem supportive. They're gonna draft a letter and vote on it probably next meeting. And then
Where is
bring
that?
it here.
Well, it's
The
part
backside
of that
Riverbank.
property.
Yeah, it's the problematic
Yeah.
got it.
watershed area.
So it would be limited to, and they're gonna talk to the water department as well, to limit it to the town property and the water property, potentially if they agree. And then the proposal would be from the Lunas and supported by the Conservation Commission to look at rezoning those conservation areas away from IA to something, even maybe a new zone or
Well,
reusing a
if
public.
all the land involved is public, there is a zoning category for public.
But it isn't if it's water district.
Okay, you're right.
So,
Water district lands are zone public. There's also an open
Okay.
space
okay.
zoning
Okay.
classification.
yeah,
We're
so-
they're probably gonna be okay. And then it comes to us, and then
Yeah.
we actually have to do
yeah.
the hearing.
And then they're looking at potentially using that as a model for other similar spaces townwide.
Yeah, we have a few spots around town that
Yep.
have similar problems.
They want to see how this would go first in one location before trying to boil the ocean and do too many areas across town.
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. And then we had listed on here our annual goals and objectives as a board. I don't know if we want to just take that on in a work session. I'd like it to be taken on sooner than later, so maybe we could start a small discussion about that now and maybe make a couple subheadings, but I personally, one thing I would like to do also at the next meeting and have on the agenda is to revisit the town meeting debrief of the zoning articles. It's one of our duties as a board to be bringing forth recommended zoning articles, and so I guess I'd like to kind of review that process. I have said in the past, on several occasions, that I think that if we're going to be bringing articles, that we need to be the ones bringing them. I think it's not really fair to put Evan in the position of bringing forth our article, especially if we're not then going to support it. So I think that we should bring our own articles, and if in the future, if there's articles that people have objections to or issues with, I think we should try and, my bad, I think we should have tried to work that out in advance by amending the article with a friendly amendment or modifying it so that we could present as a united group working together instead of having an argument in public about the zoning article we were bringing. So I hope that won't ever happen again, and I hope we can find a better way to work out our differences if we are doing that, or else not bring zoning articles if we can't agree.
I think that's a great idea. Absolutely, and I really do think that we should be bringing it in front of town meeting.
So next work session, and are there other things that people want to do? We're gonna, so for the annual goals and objectives, we're gonna codify our policies and procedures. We're gonna work on maybe working together as a team better. We're gonna figure out some objectives if we have any pertaining to zoning, and have a better plan going forward of how we're gonna bring those as a unified board. I would like it if we played in the sandbox a bit better than we seem to be right now, together. The next work session, May 10th. Anyone have any other goals and objectives they want to?
There's just something that I think we should talk about. Evan, where do we stand on the MBTA zoning next steps? Because that should be on our agenda
Yep.
until that's resolved.
So the next time that's on your agenda, which hopefully will be within the next month or so, working with NIMCOG, they are preparing a draft scope for your review, and they would come to your meeting and present it and discuss it with you.
When do we have to have a recommendation to the?
Next spring, right?
It's by the end of next calendar year.
Oh, so December of '24?
Yes.
Oh.
Okay.
It'd be nice to
It was
clear it up
23.
for next, for fall town meeting, though, if we could.
Yeah,
resolve.
yeah. We'd be theoretically, we would be targeting next, the
You could be ready in 2
fall
weeks.
town meeting in 2024.
But theoretically, you could just get something out in like a week or two, right?
Who, me?
Yeah, well, like, isn't it something boilerplate that you were talking about?
I mean, it could be very simple,
Yeah.
but that's for the board.
That's all they require, and
That's
that's
for
all
the
we
board
need
to discuss and figure out.
We did the questionnaire. That
Yes.
was the big thing, and that's been completed.
Yes.
And we filled that out as
Yeah,
open as
pretty
possible. That
close.
was fairly. And
The
then
action plan,
Now
yeah.
the next step is, and correct me if I'm wrong, is creating the zones, or selecting
The
the
next
zones.
step is
That's more.
a planning process with public engagement, working with NIMCOG. There's some modeling involved. But yeah, the ultimate goal is to identify locations that are compliant.
Okay.
So the other thing that I think we, as a group, just to talk about, is I think when Chris had the article last year for the warehouses, I think at that time, we talked about that it wasn't perfect and we would get this through. So I think we gotta go back and look at how do we, now that it's in, how do we clean it up, right, and get everyone's comments? So I think that should be on there. And then I think, maybe to piggyback on that, is I think we should take a look at other definitions and not try to tackle all of them, but just the ones that
Pick a
we
couple
think-
juicy ones.
Go through the zoning in general,
You know,
and,
just look at ones that are very vague, and if we can add some clarity to them,
Yeah.
so that we can, help the public out and help ourselves out, would be great.
we also had the project with NEMCOG pertaining to zoning and rezoning.
The zoning conflicts, that's right.
Conflicts, yeah.
That needs.
Contractors' garages,
What's that?
Definition.
definitions.
So, I don't know, Evan, where that got left. I mean, we kind of decided at the request of the Monmouth residents and the, what's the other one?
McFarland.
McFarland residents, that they didn't want to be rezoned at the moment until things became a bit less muddy in their relative jurisdictions. But there were other things.
Yeah, that report has been finalized. NIMCOG's gone through a transition period. So I can reach back out to them, see if they have someone who can come back to the board and do a final presentation. But otherwise, I can forward you the final, what they believe is the final draft.
I mean, if they could bring it
Well,
back
that
to
wouldn't
us,
be a
I
bad
think
thing
that
to
would be
do.
great. Yeah, maybe we could look at it first, and then if they could,
Yep.
and then I don't know if there was other areas that we wanted to
There were
look
lots
at,
of
too.
areas. It's
Lots of
a
areas
it's a
for
big
us to look at.
undertaking.
Right, so we might want to tackle another area.
Cove.
And then I also think that we maybe should put on our agenda at some point to have more collaborative meetings, maybe one with Conservation Commission, maybe one with the ZBA as a group, and see what areas, I don't know if there's, we didn't really prove that we could help them much in the last meeting, but if there's other areas where they, where we could work together fruitfully that might be worth having, we could go to one of their meetings for 20 minutes or 30 minutes or something, or send a couple representatives. I mean, we have liaisons, but more of a combined meeting than just the liaison report. I don't know if other people think that would be worthwhile.
Yeah, one of the things that Peter and I were talking about, because the Conservation Commission found meeting with DPW so helpful, and I think we did too today.
Yeah, that was good.
Having maybe a monthly or bi-monthly or whatever.
Some interval.
Summit.
Annually, at least annually.
Twice
Yeah.
or something.
Stormwater type summit.
Yeah, I
to
think it'd be a real good
coordinate
idea.
At least the stormwater as the first issue, to coordinate who's doing what and how, and, because I think it was really helpful to both groups to clear up a lot
Right.
of that the last couple of weeks.
Just like the fire department, that was so helpful too.
Yeah.
Like when we have people come tell us what they're doing, it really
Yeah.
clears up a lot of things.
Yeah, so maybe regular summit with the conservation and DPW around some of these sustainability or conservation issues or stormwater, things like that.
Mhm.
Okay.
Zero impact development or low
Yep.
impact development.
There are a lot of things that overlap or synergies
Yeah.
between the groups.
Yeah. Okay, so,
And if we're looking at, just if we're gonna look at zoning conflicts, I wonder if it makes sense to invite someone from the school committee? If there are some issues, some hot spots in town where because I know we're kind of bursting at the seams with some schools.
Yeah, I'm not sure how we would affect that exactly with zoning, but,
I don't know if you have.
but it's an interesting thing to contemplate.
Although between multifamily and single family,
Yeah.
there's a big school impact
Yeah.
potentially.
Yeah, and there's some difference of opinion as to what the impacts are, and I'd like to get down to the bottom of it. I mean,
Yeah.
there are those who say that multifamily is gonna add lots, those that say multifamily isn't gonna add very many, depends very much on the kind of apartments or condos that are being built and who they're targeted at. I mean,
Correct me if I'm wrong.
clearly, 55 plus isn't gonna give us a lot more kids in the school system.
Evan, just for your advice, I'm just gonna ask this. I was under the impression that I was told before that school, police and fire, we cannot reject the project due to that. They have to react to the development of the town. Is that true or not true?
Schools is definitely a third rail issue,
I know.
particularly where your zoning allows multifamily.
Right.
I'm just surprised to hear the NIMCOG study was land use and zoning conflicts.
Right.
Not impacts.
Right.
So.
We're talking
it
about
was-
something else.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
but if
it
we're.
just went into something else. That's why I
Yeah.
was just trying to ask the question. I was
Yeah,
under the
as
impression
part of
it
the
couldn't be added.
board's consideration, Golden Cove or whatever, yeah, I mean, always, any consideration to change existing two-family to single or whatever, yeah, I mean, it's fair game to bring up the other
Or if we
impacts.
switch to, although, like, if part of the conflict, right, if MCOG says, oh, well, you have this is all, I don't know, like RC, and you want to add this to RC, I just want to make sure that, like, are we thinking holistically for the town? Like, should we have someone in the school committee, if we're thinking of, converting an area
Yeah, I
from
mean, at this
RB to
point,
RC?
at this point, it's clear, the schools have clearly indicated they're at capacity. So, yeah, I mean, I agree with Anita. I mean, moving forward, if the planning board's gonna be considering zoning changes,
Yeah.
at
Yeah,
this
that's where
point,
it hits
at
us
this
on
point,
our
that should be one of the other considerations.
So large projects, do we take the school committee under their, get a letter from them that they
Well, I mean,
endorse?
other than MBTA, I'm not aware of the planning board of the town considering doing any zoning that increases multifamily.
I'm just asking if.
And even the MBTA
I-
remains to
I
be
think-
seen.
We
I
never
think-
had school committee weigh in.
Yeah, I think the answer is, on particular projects, school
No.
committee's
No,
irrelevant.
right, on individual
It's
projects.
only
right.
on the planning that we
Correct.
do, to the extent that we are considering changing zoning.
That's
So it's
all
with
I-
our
Exactly.
planning hats, not with our
Exactly.
regulatory hats. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it's same with sewer capacity.
and I gotta take a look, there may be some stuff in the master plan that touches on this.
There's probably a sentence or two.
Yeah.
Yep.
So as far as the MBTA, is that somethsomething, I mean, we're working on that with NEMCOG, right? So are they are we gonna be having, like, we had that meeting, which I
You're gonna
unfortunately
be,
missed.
as soon as that process commences and you're engaged, that's gonna be a heavy lift. The planning board's, depending on your strategy and your methodology and how much public engagement you wanna do, that's gonna keep the board very busy.
Okay, and will we be having tri-board meetings with the select board and?
You can invite them, the process, NIMCOG will ask you what kind of process you want to do, if that's something that's of interest to the board. At a minimum, there needs to be some sort of public engagement process, but your methodology may want to include, as Anita's suggesting, school committee, select board, maybe conservation, but as I mentioned to you, it really depends on what your strategy is. To Paul's point, it could take 10 minutes because you simply are complying for the sake of compliance without making it a legitimate opportunity. Other strategies, some may say, well, we truly need housing in town, this is the kind of housing we need. Let's figure out real locations in which, if we zone it, developers could and would actually make proposals. But that's a policy strategy decision that the board is going to have with NIMCOG.
And do we know when that's gonna happen?
Like I said, we're waiting for them to prepare a draft scope. But the process has to start no later than this summer or fall. A regular zoning article takes
Indeed.
3-4 months.
Okay, it'd be ideal if we could maybe start talking to them over the summer where things
Exactly.
theoretically slow down for us and we could allocate a little bit more time for the work
Yeah,
sessions.
that's what we did last year.
Yeah.
Yep.
We talked to him. But I think you're right. I think the guy that we were talking to moved on, right?
Jeff, yes,
Yeah,
he did.
moved on.
Yep.
Yeah. How big of an agenda do we have next week, or next meeting on the 10th?
The 10th, you have these 3 continuances. I don't recall if there's any new public hearings. I don't believe so.
So it'd be the working session plus these 3 continuances?
Correct. So your second meeting in May will likely lighten up if you're able to resolve a couple on the 10th.
I will entertain a motion.
You have it.
Second.
Second. Boom.
All in favor?
Aye.
Tim?
He's already gone.
No, he's not, he's right there.